Picking up from where we left off in our last video, here is the completed wall section. You can see all the bits of styrene holding the pieces together with the spaces left for the columns. And I gave the whole piece a good coat of Tester's clear coat just to seal it. Moving on now to the front face of the building. I assembled my panels much the same way that I did in the last video for the wall, having to sand down the edges of each of the individual panels to get rid of the slight curvature and make sure all the corrugations lined up. In this case though, we're 4 panels high because there is the peaked roof, so we have to cut out a section of the 4th panel so that when you look at the building from the face, the panels go beyond the height that was on the side of the building. The overall width of the building, as measured by the column and roof beams, is 15 3/4 inches, but because we are gluing the wall panels to the columns like this, the front face of the building is a tad wider, so cut out the panels to measure an extra 1/16 of an inch on either side, so the overall width is 15 7/8 of an inch. Now the front face of the building is a little more complicated than the walls. Number one, because it's got some openings in it for the railway tracks and the truck dock and the man door, but there are also supporting columns that will run on the inside of the front face that we have to find a place for and make sure we don't put them in the middle of the doors, etc. So instead of going straight to gluing the panels together as we did with the wall, I've just pulled the pieces together and holding them in place with masking tape for now, so that I don't cut first and find out, oops, it's in the wrong place. This way I will double check to make sure that the doors are exactly where they should be. You can see I have measured them out, and these have been scaled from the drawing, so I've got the correct height and the same relative placement as on the plan, but I want to make sure that when I'm cutting the pieces of styrene for the joints to hold them in place, I want to make sure that they're not going to be where these vertical sections are going to be. Now these vertical members, you see there's 4 of them evenly spaced along the wall. I'm using the evergreen 1/4 inch styrene strips. That's these ones here. And learning from my earlier mistakes, I masked off one side of it that is going to be glued against the inside wall, so that when I gave it a coat of this steel gray, it left this bare styrene, so it'll have a good bond when I glue it on. Now, since the track and foundation was constructed about 7 years ago now, I thought good idea to come down and let's test fit this panel before we start cutting open sections in the wall for the track. So stepping back and sighting down the track, and let's zoom in. Let's see. And we can see that the doors are centered nicely on the 2 tracks, and overall the wall fits on the concrete base that was built so many years ago. So that's a good test fit. The last thing you'd want to do is start cutting plastic and finding out, oops, the doors are in the wrong place, and you have to start all over again. Now you only get one chance to get this peaked roof cut out correctly and not waste panels. So I used our template to create a second template, tracing it onto paper and then cutting it out, overlaying it on top of our panels, all the while they're being held together in the back with masking tape, so everything is matching correctly, all the corrugations line up. And then with this paper template on top of the panels, and using a straight edge, you can scribe a line on the panels. I made sure I changed blades and got a very sharp blade for this exercise, because you're cutting through the ribbing of the corrugations, and you want to make sure you're going through without making too wide a cut. So before we glue all of our panels together, we need to mark out where the bits of styrene are going to go so they don't interfere with anything else. So on the back side of the panel, I've marked out the two railway car doors, the truck door and the man door, and I've also marked out where these columns will go, and they're roughly spaced, roughly equally spaced, from side to side to fit 5 equal sections. So one there, one there, one there, and one there. And so fortunately they do fit as they show in the plan. They do show off, not obviously where the doors are, but some of them come close. But this tells us where we need to cut some of our smaller sections of the styrene O2O sections for gluing the pieces together on either side of these columns. Because if we put the splice piece first, then we won't be able to glue the columns directly to the wall. So we have to have some small bits of styrene on either side to glue the panels together, and this gets inserted after the fact. Here it's not so much a problem because we've got some wide open spaces, but it becomes tricky here when you only have this much space between the door openings to fit in both the column and the small bits to hold the panels together tightly. Assembling the end walls is a little bit more complicated than the side walls because we have a lot more pieces of different sizes. So first thing we're going to do here is separate the sections of the wall that will be a different color. So this is the top row and the peak for the roof. That will be red. I'll just put that aside for now. And here are the other bits and pieces that make up the bottom two rows. And to make it easier to glue them together and line up the corrugations, I find it easier to glue on the splice bars first to one side, so that when you flip it over, you have a much easier time lining up the pieces. You don't have to worry about the glue on both sides of the splice bar and it moving around. It's firmly fixed now to this piece, so it's just a matter of running a bead of a little bit of glue here, a touch on the back side, and then you have all the time in the world to line it up so that the corrugations match. Now, for these splice bars, you might recognize these. Anyone who has put together Pike Stuff kits will know that they throw in this collection of parts in a lot of their kits. It's got the downspouts for rain, a connector piece for the roof, and a number of these different length, I call them spice bars. They're about a 1/16 of an inch thick, and they can be cut up and used anywhere you want to connect pieces together. So that's what I'm using here. I've got tons of these in a baggie here from all the Pike Stuff kits that I've put together over the years. Okay, our glue has set. You can see we've still kept the top sections separate from the bottom section. This is now one piece, and the corrugations line up very nicely. You see also we've left space for the future columns to be glued in here, 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 here as well. But you'll notice we haven't glued the top peak pieces to the top row. And the reason for that is we need to leave space for our superstructure. When we put all this together, the superstructure is going to be glued against, at least the first set of columns and beams is going to be glued against the front wall, like this. And you can see up along the top through the peak area, the beams, the roof beams, are almost touching the wall here. If you recall from the earlier videos, the columns are made up of two pieces, a wider bottom piece and a narrower top piece. So there is a difference in the overall thickness. So when this is laid against the front wall, there's a bit of a gap between the beam and the wall piece. So what I'm going to do is use 2 sheets of O2O, makes O4O, because I don't have any O4O, and use strips of that, bigger pieces than this of course, to ride along the roof edge here and a bit down the side here to match the this piece here, and on the other side of this piece here. That way it accomplishes two things. One, it will nicely hold together all these tiny pieces that make up the roof peak, and with the second layer it will build it up just enough so that when I sand off the one side here and glue it on to the front face, it will fit snugly against the wall piece. So here we have our two main pieces, the bottom and the top, all ready to go. All the bits and pieces glued together. We've got our edge piece here for our frame to rest against when we're ready to do that. But for now, we are ready for painting. Here we have our two main pieces. Okay, almost ready for the big reveal. As before, we're using our splice bars, kindly provided to us by Pike Stuff, to connect the two major pieces together, and again leaving spaces for the vertical columns. Both pieces have been painted, and that's the finished product. One of the things that I learned from painting these pieces is that you can recover from the occasional mistake. This corner here, when painting it, I got a little bit too much of the paint on it, and it was running a bit, and I thought, ooh, gee, I better wipe that down quickly before it sets. And I took a paper towel to it very quickly to wipe it down. I thought I'd just give it a quick respray, but of course the fine particles, paper fibers in the hand towel got stuck in the paint and really made a mess of it. Fortunately, when reading the fine print, it says here on the can, cleans up with mineral spirits. So I just reached for my isopropyl alcohol that I had from my previous projects. This comes from the neighborhood pharmacy. It's nothing special, but it is 99%. You can buy 70% or the 99%, so it's essentially pure alcohol. And applied that with the paper towel to the gummy muck that I had created, and with enough of an application, it actually wiped it all clean. I let it dry and gave it a fresh coat of the red and solved the problem. I did let it dry for a couple of days and inspected it, found a few spots that were a little light on the red, and gave it some very light overspray to cover up the light spots, and made sure it was consistent across the whole piece. One more thing to wrap up this video is the man door. Another sprue that's often provided to modelers by Pike Stuff in their kits is this windows and doors sprue. And on there is a man door, which I have painted red, and which will go right there. Every once in a while you want to stop and do a test fit, see how the project is coming along. So I've placed the two sides of the building that I have completed up against my cardboard mock-up, and from this angle it almost looks complete, so I'm very pleased with the way it's looking.